You know, one of the biggest tells that you're not a native Italian speaker is how you use articles. Yeah, I'm talking about knowing when to drop il, la, or lo. It can feel like you have to memorize 1,000 tiny rules, but what if I told you there's a master key to all of it? Stick with me, and by the end of this, you're gonna have it. So let's start with the classic, your friend Giovanna. Do you say la Giovanna or just Giovanna? I bet you've heard both, and that right there is exactly where all the confusion starts. So let's untangle this once and for all. All right, here's our game plan. We're going to start with people, places, and teams. Then we'll dive into that infamous, tricky family rule. After that, we'll talk about time, and then materials and abstract ideas. But you have to stick around for number 5 because that's where we reveal this amazing pattern that connects almost everything. And then, of course, it's your turn to practice. Okay, section 1. People, places, and teams. We're talking about the proper nouns you use every single day, so getting these rules down is absolutely foundational. So here's the main idea, and it's pretty straightforward. For people's names and for cities, you just drop the article. Simple. Alberto vive a Milano. But as soon as you get bigger, talking about countries, regions, continents, the article is almost always there. La Spagna è bella. That's really the core distinction you've got to grasp. Now, I know what you're thinking, but wait, I've definitely heard people say La Marta or Il Marco. And you know what? You're right. Especially up in northern Italy, it's a super common regional thing. But, and this is so important for learners, it's not standard Italian. So if you want to be correct, no matter where you are, just stick to the standard rule. No article for names. Of course, it wouldn't be a language without a few exceptions, right? So plural country names like I Stati Uniti, they keep their articles. Same goes for any name that has a word like Repubblica in it. And hey, pay really close attention to this last one because it's a huge clue for a pattern we're going to talk about later. When you add an adjective, like in nella bella Sardegna, the article pops right back in. Oh, and here's a really cool little trick in Italian. Look on the left. Vado a Roma. No article. That means you're talking about the city, Rome. But now look on the right. Ieri sera la Roma ha vinto. Last night, the Roma won. That little word la instantly tells any Italian speaker that you're talking about the city's soccer team. How cool is that? A super useful thing to know. Okay, deep breaths, everyone. Now we're heading into what might be the most infamous rule of them all, family members. When is it mia sorella and when is it la mia sorella? Let's get this sorted. For good. Okay, here's the main rule you need to lock into your brain. If you've got one single family member, brother, sister, mother, cousin, and you're using a possessive like my, your, or his, you do not use the article. It's mio fratello, not il mio fratello. Tua cugina, not la tua cugina. That's the default setting. But you knew there was a but, right? The article comes roaring back in 3 specific cases. First, if you're talking about more than one family member, so plurals, le vostre sorelle. Second, if you're using the possessive loro, which means their, il loro fratello. And third, when you use what we call affection forms. So what on earth is an affection form? Well, just think of it as the cute, sweet, or endearing version of a family noun. You know, like saying mamma instead of madre, or papa instead of padre. These sort of cuddly, affectionate terms break the main rule, and they always take the article. So it's la mia mamma and il mio papa. Okay, let's switch gears from people to time. And the good news here is that the rules for months, days, and dates, well, they follow a really nice and logical pattern. Just check out this comparison. When you're talking about a month in general, like in July, I'll go to the sea, you say a luglio, no article needed. But the moment you make it specific, like the December of 1999, boom, the article appears. il dicembre 1999. See that? General versus specific. Keep that in mind. The article also shows up when you're talking about something that happens over and over, like a habit. If you say, il sabato vado a fare la spesa, that il tells us you mean every Saturday or Saturdays in general. It basically turns that day of the week into a recurring event. Okay, this is our last set of specific rules before we pull back and look at the big, beautiful picture. This section is all about how some really common prepositions like in, con, and senza act with different kinds of nouns. This table makes it pretty clear. For general places inside a building, in usually doesn't take an article. Sono in cucina, I'm in the kitchen. But other prepositions like a often do. And hey, look at that last row. See that pattern again? As soon as you add a little detail like my kitchen, the article is back. Sono nella mia cucina. Now this one is really fascinating. With con and senza, abstract ideas, things you can't touch, like patience or resentment, they don't take an article. You act con pazienza. But for concrete physical things, you usually need it. So say senza le scarpe, without the specific shoes you were just wearing. Saying just senza scarpe is more like a general state of being shoeless. It's a subtle but important difference. Okay, we have covered a lot of ground, but now we finally get to the best part. I want you to take a step back with me because there is this powerful hidden meta that connects almost everything we've just talked about. Here it is. This is the single most important thing to take away from this whole explainer. In Italian, when you go from a general idea to a specific one, the article almost always comes back. Adding detail, an adjective, a specific year, any extra information, that's the trigger that brings the article into the sentence. And once you see this pattern, you'll see it everywhere. Just look back at our examples. We went from the general idea of dicembre to the very specific il dicembre 1999, from just the city Roma to the more descriptive la storica Roma, from being senza scarpe in general to being without the specific le scarpe da ginnastica, my sneakers. It's the same logic every single time. Specificity brings back the article. Understanding a pattern is one thing, but making it second nature, making it an automatic habit, that's the real goal. So, it's your turn. Let's put this into practice and make sure it sticks for good. So, here's your challenge. First, write a couple sentences about your family. Something like mio fratello, but then also I miei cugini, so you can practice that singular versus plural rule. Second, describe your country, but make sure you add an adjective to it, which will force you to use that article. And third, try writing a sentence like studio con pazienza, and then add some detail to it and see how it changes. So I'll leave you with this question. Now that you're armed with this master pattern of specificity, I want you to keep your eyes and ears open. When you're reading, when you're listening, when you're speaking Italian, start noticing all the other times that adding just a little bit of detail makes that definite article pop right back into existence. Happy hunting!